Right, not so good camera. That's got a charger. We got our green light, that's what matters. And all a bit of a mess because we've had a week-long flu. It's just getting better. Right, don't really want to make this film because I actually did my washing this morning. They've got to be sorted out, my hankies. Why do I say I don't want to make a film? The only reason I've turned the camera on is like, it's astonishing. Nobody else in this car park. 9 o'clock in the morning, the sun's up. I'm going to switch the van round so that the back is facing that way and take my shirt off and get some sun. Good for me. In an hour's time, this car park will fill up, so it's not like some total paradise. I've turned this on because I've listened 3 times now to the Sam Harris and what's his face? What is his face? Robert Sapolsky on free will. And I needed to. The scary thing is, if I forget to... See, I got to do like a I don't have to do anything, but I want to do a 5-minute summary of why this is important to the world. The funny thing is, what's the funny thing? The funny thing is, yeah, so as I'm listening to things like that, it's like, obviously there's 2 or 3 major problems. I mean, the major problem, well, in one sentence, it's like the internet has taken the world back, or potentially, no, will have taken the world back 40 years, or 30, literally, because they're discussing crime and punishment. Now, everything in there, basically people like Neil Christie was, and some English thinkers, they were beginning to think of in these ways 30 years ago. So, unfortunately, because of the nature of America, meaning it's just chance, 400 million people living with a large amount of natural resources, they ended up richer and a shared language, etc., etc. So it's like, if you're living in Africa, you're going to find the Sam Harris podcast if you want to think about things that are secular and not bongo, modern, enlightened. You're not going to find anything by any English thinkers. You're not going to find anything even by people like Neil Christie, or Dutch thinkers, or German thinkers, who literally 30 or 40 years ago they got to where these people are today, despite their Stanford education. But the starting point is this: an American listening to everything in there, the nuance, it is impossible, and I'm serious now, I've listened to so many Americans over 20 years when I discovered this myself. I knew it already. That's the point. British culture in the 80s, we knew less is more. It's so hard to put into words so you're not rocking the boat. I mean, the whole of even Britain became selling more stuff, experience. You need more fancy workshops. You've got to have, unless you've got access to a pile of 50 quid's worth of special books by all sorts of new age or new think people, you're somehow lesser. Now, there is a balance, but we have libraries. there is a balance. Yes, you need some access to modern, influential, useful thinking. But we also had the concept in Britain, less is more. You find it to a certain extent in some other European countries, less is more. And you know, throughout your Sam Harris stuff, it's like, oh, if you live in some malaria-ridden swamp, now, of course, naturally, I mean, they're incapable of saying the most important word in the language is relative. As they will say, you inherit liver parasites, you have malaria. Yeah, but that's all they can think about. They cannot think about maybe some person living in a simpler society, age 20, 30, 40, if they're lucky getting to 70 or 80, will actually have had a relatively so much more joyful life. I mean, to an American, that's like impossible. Point being, unless on a society that is lesser, in their view, by their measurement. Now this still sounds a bit too hippie and dippy. I mean, the bottom line is, it's impossible to get the data or have the research. But I know, I've seen enough of the world that you have genuine smiles, genuine belly laughter, and although it can often go wrong and get perverted, more genuine family bonding that is sustaining and causes love and good hormones throughout longer periods of life. You're going to find so many more estranged adult children in Britain, America, than you are going to find in Africa. Now, of course, there's an intellectual positive thing to that sometimes. If my parents are lost to Stone Age metaphysical religions, let's just say religions, that's for some people going to be a good thing. But you're going to find so many more estranged situations in the West when there's no deeply important intellectual, rational reason to say, okay, that's enough of that, let's go and let's leave this family behind. So, you know, it all comes down to what is happiness. And your American top philosopher cannot even use this as a starting point. Less is more. But also, just as important and impossible to measure, but excuse me, are you sure that our societies, for your average 30, 40, 50-year-old, who are also status obsessed, I mean, they will come here, they will all have smiles on their face, but those smiles are based on having a expensive vehicle. I was watching yesterday, every single person who comes here is like displaying an expensive fashion statement. Every single one, despite being the 30-something, oh, super kind of, hey, we're so happy and so kind of hipster, and you know, this is particularly the women, are like, hey, we're just so cool. We like the simple things. We're going for a 2-hour walk along the coast here, or to take our dog to the beach, but in a super hipster way now. But they've all got expensive fashion items on them, every single one of them, and expensive backpacks, which when they break or they discover that all these expensive items are actually rip-off and don't last very long, are you telling me they remain happy? They remain with this painted-on kind of hipster smile, performing wholesomeness. It's performed wholesomeness. Anyway, that becomes a little bit more mute and difficult, but backing out of that, just generally speaking, I know that if one meets people in so-called developing nations or countries or whatever you want to call them, plenty of them actually display more genuine, like, aside from, if you take out this comparison between, hey, we live in this way, but you in the West live that way. If you once you get rid of that, and it's very difficult, but if you can be in situations where that doesn't exist, in many ways, they are more one encounters many people who just simply exist by a clearly happier, more integrated, genuinely smiley paradigm. But an American cannot think like that. It is just incredible. That's the starting point. And then the internet's actually taken us 30 years back in reality, because unfortunately most of South America, most of Africa is going to be rather polluted by, hey, we've only just discovered. Maybe we need to be compassionate to people who've committed terrible crimes. Yeah, well, Norway discovered that about 30 years ago, I believe. Yeah, it's just... ultimately, poor Sam Harris, it's just an inadvertent arrogance. It's quite astonishing, but it takes the world backwards.